exactly what we have in the European Union, because this has been an ongoing construction for decades. People died in the making of this European Union, particularly in
willpower, fueled by packets of Haribo and sealed following a visit to the chip shop. We found an agreement that enshrines the United Kingdom's special status as a country never joining the Euro and never joining Schengen. As a country that does not wish to be part of
it is the British people who are deciding, and that the British politicians are taking position. And I can tell you one thing, if there is one party in the UK who's going to fight that Britain remain in the Union, it's going to be the Liberal Democratic movement, and them alone.
To its laws, future generations, a generation of the British decided to join the European Union. That generation can now not impose on European institutions.
The new settlement promised to us in 2013 by David Cameron has been ditched. Our sovereignty will continue to be eroded and our security will continue to be at risk. We will continue to send billions more to the EU than we get back, and the fundamental flaws of membership will remain. But Mr. President, even if we look at the mediocre tweaks being hailed by those advocating Remain, they bring with them no guarantees. There will be...
Once you have said no in the referendum, you are invited back to the negotiation table, like with Ireland, like with Denmark, like after the constitution with France and the Netherlands. But it's not about the same thing. That was about the constitution, that was about a treaty. Here it's about in or out. It's the one or the other. And if I see how...
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terricabras. Now for 3 minutes we have Mr. Farage.
We're embarked upon a course of almost unbelievable stupidity. The historic error made by Chancellor Merkel last year by saying all can come has led directly to this mess. And now we're being blackmailed by Turkey. First they came for 3 billion in a promise to reduce the numbers coming in to Greece and the rest of Europe. And of course, when the numbers increased many-fold, they came back for another 3 billion. And they will keep on coming back for more and more and more. As the British poet Rudyard Kipling observed of the Danish incursions into England. And that is called paying the Danegeld. But we proved it again and again that if once you have paid him the Danegeld, you'll never get rid of a Dane. And now they've got us over a barrel. This new deal, where for every one illegal migrant we send back, if our human rights laws allow it, they'll send us another one back from Syria. So the argument is, we paid them a fortune not to reduce numbers, and yet we've given in and we've said visa-free access for 75 million Turks from June of this year. In theory, they can stay for 90 days. In practice, many will disappear or, of course, claim family reunion. The numbers will go sharply, sharply up. And in return for all of this, we're now going to fast-track Turkey as a full member of the European Union. My goodness me, I wish that David Cameron was as good at negotiations as the Turks are. So we're going to go into political union with a country that's got borders with Iraq, Iran and Syria. We're going to go into political union with a country that is poorer than anybody else in the European Union and give free movement for 75 people, and join up with a government that is increasingly Islamist and authoritarian. The Turkish Prime Minister said this week, Turkish membership will be a turning point. Too right. The British Prime Minister has long supported Turkey being a member of this union. In fact, he's fought hard over 10 years for them to join. He doesn't bat an eyelid at the extra £500 million we will stump up to help fund this crisis. Well, this referendum in Britain is all about what is the safest option. And given that the boss of Europol says already there are 3,000 to 5,000 Islamist terrorists that have come into Europe using the migrant routes, it's pretty clear to me that a vote to remain is a vote for Turkey. A vote to remain is a vote for massively increased immigration into Britain, and a vote to remain is a vote that makes Britain more vulnerable to terrorism. Safer to vote to leave and take back control of our borders. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Farage. Now for 1 minute 30, Mr. De Graaf.
Voorzitter.
President. Shame on you, is what we've heard. Monday, complete capitulation to the Turkish dictator Erdogan. You are betraying our values in Europe. You are stampeding over our values. You're putting our freedom up for grabs. It is very clear the lack of power you've shown for this EU SSR. The Europe of elites is in complete panic mode. In panic about the internal market. You're paying the Sultan of Ankara €6 billion. And Turkey will then be allowed to become a fast-tracked member of the EU. So you are subjecting yourself to Islam, an Islamist Europe, and this is a historical mistake. You're calling this peace in our time. Rubbish. This plan has to be now taken off the table. Stop the billions going to Turkey. Stop the Islamist invasion. Stop the betrayal of the European people. Enough is enough. Just one solution. One way. One very powerful answer to this flow of refugees. Close and protect the outer borders, and do that now. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. De Graaf. And now for a minute we have Ms. Dodds.
Mr. President, later this month the Council of Ministers will reconvene and return to the nitty-gritty of tackling the mess created by the EU's project's failed approach to migration and competitiveness. Despite Mr. Weber's valiant attempts to present this week's deal and our relationship with Turkey as one of partnership and not dependency, the reality is that migration policy is chaotic, expensive and giving in to the bullying of Turkey in terms of visa liberalisation and accession. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister continues to tour the country to sell that other failed deal. Thankfully, for millions of people across the United Kingdom, there is hope. We believe that the extent of our ambitions must be about more than making the best of a bad deal. There is another way. To paraphrase the now former director of the British Chamber of Commerce, there can be a brighter future, one outside the European Union.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Dodds. Now for 2 minutes we have Mr. Grzyb.
Thank you, Chair. Turkey apparently is, but there is a certain amount of blackmailing going on within the EU as well. Look at Mr. Cameron, look at his labour issues and labour rights. He's been blackmailing the European Union. There appears to be some kind of culture of blackmail. What would you have to say about that, Mr. Marias? Thank you. Mr. Marias. Thank you. Well, regarding Mr. Cameron's position, I already said a few words about that yesterday. In fact, I spoke at some length about this decision for the UK. I mean, all politicians, I think, subscribe to this, voted for this. This creates a situation where, at the end of the day, decisions are being taken, but this is to the detriment of all of our workers, you know, on the basis of their nationality. And those who want to work in the UK won't be enjoying any rights. What about Brits who come to work in Germany? They would have some rights, albeit limited ones. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Marias. And now for 1 minute, I call Mr. Teliska.
Please don't get me wrong. I do see a progress at the summit with Turkey, and don't get me wrong. I know that we are in partnership with Turkey. Sometimes we can't choose our partners, even if they confiscate media or crack down on human rights organizations and whatever else. But what we can do is influence the content of the agreement. And I'm not really sure that the deal that has been struck with Turkey will lead us in the right direction. One for one, I can understand that we are legalizing maybe migration, but not necessarily under our norms. But I don't see us limiting migration in this respect. Exchanging for visa liberalization, how on earth is it connected? And even more so, I have negotiated the Czech accession to the EU. We will be opening chapters with Turkey at the same time as Erdogan does what he does. So for me, it is a question of a comprehensive agreement that we expect from the summit, with concrete deadlines, with concrete measures, concrete issues in place. And final remark on the internal market. I very much agree with you, Madam Minister, but I would like to see also a progress in practice. Fourth railway package trialogue, move the Council, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Telichka. The next speaker for 1 minute, Mr. Hadjigeorgiou.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, I would have signed that argument if it was actually on goods, coffins maybe, but I am ashamed that human beings are being exchanged for other human beings in this way. Even the United Nations has made the point that this agreement doesn't comply with human rights. And coughing up 3 billion to ensure that UN kept Syrian towns safe would make much more sense. 2 Syrian towns for people to return to. What we have here is horse trading. What we have here is an agreement that's in Turkey's favour. We have seen what happened with Saman being taken over. We've seen what's happened to university students, and we've seen what's happened in Zora as well, and we'd like people to be able to leave that town. And then we had Mr. Zora offering roses to women journalists, where women in his country are oppressed.
Mrs. Keller for 1 minute.
Thank you. Monday's council was a council of shame. What you, and that means 28 heads of state of government, have been deciding is to break...
Or other countries. We are against the delocation of European problems to other countries. It's not others who should solve our problems. It's time for the member states to shoulder their responsibilities, taking binding decisions. Don't let's wait for others to do what we should be doing. The decline of European civilization will only be stopped if we recover our moral force, the dignity which meant that the whole world esteemed us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for the ECR group, I call Mr. Kamal.
Last week, Donald Tusk gave a very clear message to potential irregular migrants when he said, "Do not come to Europe, do not believe smugglers." Finally, a European leader trying to break the link between getting on a boat and bypassing legal migration channels, because stemming the flow of irregular migrants will allow our countries to focus on helping the refugees who need and deserve our help directly from the conflict zones. But let us be clear, our enemies are not the refugees who are fleeing from war, conflict and persecution. Our enemies are not the irregular migrants who come from safer countries and who may use the conflict to understandably seek a better life in our countries. Our enemies are the people traffickers who prey on innocent and desperate people, who care little for the lives of their human cargo and who deserve to be taken out of action. So on Monday, EU leaders agreed the outline of an agreement with the Turkish government. And I hoped, like Gianni, to be standing here today welcoming a deal. But instead, I have to admit, I have a number of reservations and questions. Firstly, the process. Yet again, we see 1 or 2 leaders going off to negotiate with Turkey on behalf of the EU without really consulting the other countries. Secondly, I struggle to see how much of this is either legal or practical. Even in desperate times, should we just tear up our own rules and international conventions? And thirdly, I am very concerned that we are replacing one series of pressures from economic migration with another by granting Turkey visa liberalisation in a matter of weeks, without thinking through the implications. And fourthly, How will the €6 billion be delivered? Will it be tied to clear targets that must be met? Or otherwise, would we not be better off and safer spending that vast sum of money here on reception, processing and returns? And Turkey itself is testing the EU. Those of us who believe in freedom of the press should be concerned about the actions of the Turkish government against the Zaman newspaper. But if we are to work with Turkey on migration as friends, then as friends we should also be honest with them about whether EU membership is realistic and with our concerns over freedoms in their country. Whatever our views, we must all realise that we will not begin to control this crisis until we all realise there is no one silver bullet to solve this crisis. We made that mistake last year with the relocation scheme. Let's not make that same mistake again. And while we may not be able to stop the flows altogether, we can show that our borders are not a free-for-all. In the short term, we can work on finalising readmission agreements and speeding up returns. We can fingerprint upon arrival and find resources to speed up the processing of applications. We can put NATO ships in the Aegean to target the traffickers. In the long run, we can talk about reform of Dublin. But should we really be reinventing Dublin in the midst of a crisis? Or should we find a way of making the system we have work effectively and helping those facing the greatest pressures? Dublin has failed because countries stopped implementing it. Yes, Greece does have a significant humanitarian crisis, but EU politicians would be making a huge mistake to try and launch a hostile takeover of Greece under Article 78 of the treaty, as I see some politicians are proposing. Guy, I see you looking at me. I imagine you're going to attack me again this week. There are a number of times you mention Mr Kemal in your speeches. Really is flattering. I just hope for your partner's sake you don't mention my name in your sleep. But on an issue as important as this, I ask you and others here today not to seek to score cheap political points, but to agree how all of us can work together to find effective answers. Not undeliverable silver bullets, not initiatives designed purely to grab the headlines, but practical solutions to save lives and help refugees. Because we owe it to our citizens and the refugees that desperately need our help to stem the flow of those who are not refugees, to help frontline states take responsibility and to provide a refuge for those genuinely fleeing for their lives.
Herr Kamal.
Mr. Kamal. Mr. Etheridge has a question for you. Would you be happy to take it?
I'm happy, yes.
In fact, almost all UKIP members have asked to seize this moment, but I can only take one. I can only pick one. I'll pick Mr. Etheridge. He was the first to ask for this opportunity. So there you go. Mr. Etheridge, go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for choosing me. I appreciate that everyone's keen to talk to Mr Kemal. And last time we spoke, Mr Kemal, I had the honour of asking you a question about Turkey, and you contradicted the position that your leader, the Prime Minister, has held for many years about Turkish membership of the EU. I wonder if now you'd like to join with me in condemning your leader, the Prime Minister's part in a very shoddy deal that's been done with Turkey, the payment of protection money, basically on his knees with the rest of the EU, begging Turkey to solve the problems we've got. And while we're at it, give us a critique of his other failed renegotiations. Any that might come to mind?
Mr Etheridge, you're either naive or a real optimist if you expect me to stand here and criticise the leader of my party, the Prime Minister of my country. I would say wake up or get some coffee before you come into the chamber. But what I would say to you, you also criticised him over the negotiation. No Prime Minister has done more to negotiate a different relationship with the EU than this current Prime Minister, and for that you should give him credit.
Schön.
Wonderful, thank you. And I now call the next speaker on behalf of the Liberal Group, Mr Verhofstadt.
Chairman, so I have understand that it's forbidden that I look to Mr Kemal. And in any way I'm going to surprise Mr Kemal because essentially, Mr Kemal, I am in agreement with the critical points you have made on the proposal that is on the table. I don't deny that we need practical and technical arrangement, Mr. Weber, with Turkey as a part of a global approach. But it is not a practical or technical arrangement. It is a deal with Turkey in which we outsource our problems, in a deal in which we are giving, in fact, the entrance keys, the keys to the gates of Europe in the hands of Turkey, of the successors of the Ottoman Empire, to Erdogan. I should even say maybe to Sultan Erdogan. He shall now decide on the entrance in the European Union. Because what is the deal, in fact? The deal is that we are blocking, collectively, the entrance to the European Union for Syrians and for other people, and it is Turkey on an individual basis who shall decide who is the refugee who can enter, in a trade-off, one-to-one. Some Syrians shall maybe enter, but for example, Afghani who are fleeing for IS in Afghanistan? No. And a Kurd who want to leave Iraq or maybe another country shall certainly not be allowed to be in that, to enter in that scheme. So I have to tell you, I am on the same side as Mr. Kamal. For once, I should say, I find this deal hugely problematic. Problematic because it's a type of collective refoulement, what we are doing. Collective refoulement, and in my eyes, this is forbidden. This is forbidden by the Convention of Geneva. Moreover, you have to know, dear colleagues, that Turkey is a very poor member of the Geneva Convention. They have not ratified a number of protocols. One example, Turkey doesn't give political asylum to Syrians. They give only political asylum to refugees coming from countries from the Council of Europe. And secondly, they don't give asylum, for example, to victims of internal civil conflicts, like the conflict raging for the moment in the southeast of Turkey. So I think that is hugely problematic to exactly ask to the country who has not fully accepted all protocols of the Convention of Geneva to say, and now you are going to do the business. It's like the Americans are saying to the Mexicans, oh well, yeah, you manage the borders in the future. That is what we are doing. So I think it is hugely problematic. And secondly, all this, and I understand this reasoning, and Mr. Dombrovskis and Mr. Balzas had repeated this morning. They were saying, yeah, but it's the way to stop the smugglers. It's the only way to stop human trafficking. Well, I have to tell you, I'm absolutely not of that opinion. I think the opposite shall happen. By reducing the entrance point in the European Union, in such a narrow way as we are doing now, by giving only to Turkey the possibility on an individual basis to give an entrance to the European Union, what we're going to do is that these desperate refugees are going to look to alternative routes, to other routes. And I tell you, in a few weeks, we have again here a debate in this Parliament about the revival of the Lampedusa route. We're going to have a debate about a new route in Albania, a new route by Malta, a new route in Bulgaria. And it's going to not solve the problem, because the problem cannot be solved by others, by third countries. It has to be solved by us, by the European Union, and that is what we're lacking for the moment. So, my plea